Let's talk about the joy of labeling in your craft room. Hey y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com, and I am on an organization journey in this craft studio of mine. So I moved this past summer into a new space, into a new house, into a new state, and I am still working on getting my craft studio set up just like I want it. But I'm now at the point where it's time to start really refining and defining some places. And one of my favorite ways to really define a space or a zone in my craft studio is to use labeling. I think my label maker is one of my favorite tools that I use all over the house, all of the time. And today I want to talk about the joy of labeling in your space and how empowering it is and how it really can help during the organization process. Sometimes we save labeling for the end, but I think it can help in the midst of the organization process, even if you're having to change up the labels as you kind of refine your zones and your spaces as you go. So here's what I want to do. I'm at a point where I need to do some labeling in my craft studio. I thought I would bring you all along so we could label together and I could talk a little bit about why I do the labels, how I label things, how I decide what to label, all of that business. We're going to talk about labels. So here's what I want you to do. Grab your label maker or grab some Post-it notes and a pen and maybe a little extra tape to hold it secure. And let's start labeling some of the things in your space and in my space. Okay, so before we get started on labeling all of the things, let me start with this because I always get questions on my label maker. So I have a P-Touch Embellish label maker from Brother, and I do like it a lot. This one is intended for crafting because there's all kinds of cartridges. Here is where the cartridges go, and they just pop in and out really easily. There are all types of cartridges. You can have ribbon ones. They have all kinds of colored ones. There's just a lot of options with the P-Touch Embellish, which make it a lot of fun. I will be completely honest, I don't use all of the cartridges. I use this as a basic label maker. So you don't need a fancy label maker. You just need a label maker of any sort. And truthfully, a Post-it note can work just as wonderfully. There's all kinds of ways you can label. Of course, you can use vinyl in your Cricuts or your silhouettes. You can use label makers, Post-its, whatever works. But I truly believe that labeling is just a wonderful way to really get your space in shape. So I have my P-Touch Embellish pulled out. I also have two cartridges. I have one that is white and one that is clear. It'll kind of depend on what I'm labeling for which one I use. So I went ahead and pulled both of them out. But that is what I use. I do love this label maker, but like I said, I don't know that I needed one this nice, but the option's always there. So that's fun. All right. Let's head over and start labeling. So in my current studio, you're already going to see a lot of examples of labeling. First of all, I have all of my stickers labeled. This is the Happy Planner side. This is the side with the other small businesses that I work with and work for. And I love these. These labels were made from a Cricut using vinyl. And I have a whole video on my Patreon channel when I reorganized these stickers as I was moving in. So these work really well. I also have a bunch of labels over here. This is my card catalog that I have had for years. I did find it at like a vintage place, a thrift store. I love it. My husband built this shelf specifically for that card catalog. And these have been labeled for a while and they are working just fine. There's a couple that don't have labels that I probably need to go through and fix. So maybe we will do that today. Otherwise, this is looking good. I have labels on vinyl over here. There's just, there's plenty of labels going on. But when I reorganize, when I change things up, then new labels need to be added. So here's what we're looking at today. First of all, I have this system of magazine holders that is holding a bunch of paper, cardstock, things like that, that I use for my printer. that I want to label and organize. Then I have down here my Alex drawers. I changed these all up, and I'm not going to go into what's in each and every drawer. It's just very different from what was in them when I was in my other space. So I need to change the labels on here, or actually label these. So I need to do that. I have some labeling that needs to happen over here in Glowforge land and over here in what I'm calling planner land as well. So a lot of little labeling, and we'll talk through it as we go and kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, so first up, I think I'm going to start right here. This is a shelf that I'm feeling really good about. So I say all the time, I think you can label somewhat as you go. I don't think you have to wait to the end of an organization project to actually label your spaces, but that doesn't mean that all the labeling is going to happen at once. I have these shelves in my craft studio that I'm liking. However, I can tell you that the top two shelves I'm not totally pumped about. Like, those are not how I would call complete. They're not the final product, or at least even close to the final product, but they're holding a lot of stuff. They're just not there. However, these shelves with all the paper, this is doing pretty good. This system is working. I lived with it for a couple weeks, and now it's time to go ahead and label so that I can be really specific about what goes where. These are different types of papers that need to be very clearly labeled so I know what I'm grabbing, what weight of cardstock, what size of cardstock, all of that business. So I'm going to use some white labels for these because I'm labeling on top of some magazine holders, and this will just be really clear to me and to anyone else coming in my craft studio, meaning my kiddos and my husband, to make sure that they are grabbing the correct paper. So let's get labeling. I think sometimes people avoid labeling because they think you have to wait until your space is completely done before you add labels. And while I agree that you definitely don't want to start out with labeling, because I have already switched up where things go in this space multiple times, I do think that labeling during the process or at points through the process really helps to contain your supplies. There is something about an area being labeled that keeps me from throwing random stuff in that space. So the fact that all of these paper magazine holders, I picked them up from Amazon. Yes, I love that they're in rainbow color because I'm all about the rainbow colors in my studio. But the fact that they're labeled now is really going to make me think twice before I just cram random papers into those magazine holders. It just keeps everything a little bit more straight, which I think is really important. So I label throughout my craft space for that purpose, not only as something to help me find stuff, but also almost as an obstacle to keep me from putting stuff away in the wrong place. Okay, next up is my Alex drawers. I have had these labeled in the past in a couple of different ways. First of all, I have done beautiful vinyl labels that go on the front that look wonderful. And I ended up deciding that I wanted something a little bit more subtle. Obviously, I have a lot of things in my craft room, a lot of color, and a lot of labels. And sometimes the labeling feels overwhelming. So instead, I'm going to be labeling right in here, and I'll show you how that works, but it's a great place, especially in these Alex drawers, to label, and really on any drawers, because as soon as you pull the drawer open, you see the label ready to go. And on the Alex drawers, you can actually see them before you pull the drawer, which works really, really well. So we're going to get these labeled next. Here is another reason that I love labeling in my space. If I cannot create a simple layout for a section of my craft room, that probably means that that zone does not make sense. If you cannot boil down what is in one drawer, what is in one container, on one shelf, to a category of crafting that makes sense, then perhaps you need to reconsider some of your zones. And that is something that I discovered as I was working on these Alex drawers. I did label all of these drawers, but there were a couple that turned into more of that quote miscellaneous craft category, or one drawer that I labeled pegboard accessories and mums for homecoming moms. So that seems like an odd pairing to me, which makes me think I need to rethink where these things are located. So just the act of labeling really had me reconsidering where things were going. And if I'd never taken the time to do the label, then I probably wouldn't have even thought this is a little bit odd. So I love that it made me kind of second guess a few things, and it's making me rethink how I want to organize. All right, so here is a look. See how clean that looks, and it defines the spaces. Like I said, this may not be the final arrangement, but this is working for now. And it feels good to have the labels on because it really starts to contain what is in there. And it helps me just start to find things, especially when I've been arranging and rearranging. This just makes sense to me. So love that those are done. Next up is all of this. So this is Glowforge goodies, all acrylic and woods, and it's divided up, but I want to label the type of material on the top just so that I can very easily find what I'm looking for instead of pulling out a bunch of acrylic over and over again. So we're going to do quick labels for right over here. One of the reasons that I opt for these label maker labels instead of vinyl labels is that they can be changed. I know that these labels do not need to be permanent, and in fact, mine will not be permanent. I need them to be able to change because as I bring in new materials, things are going to shift, and I'm still new in this craft room. There are still things that are getting settled, so change is going to be important. Okay, so as you can see, this very clearly labels what acrylic or what wood is where, which helps me when I'm grabbing for it or sorting it out. It also, labeling managed to show me that I had things in the wrong places. So by taking the time to put the labels, I was actually able to see, hey, a couple things were in kind of a weird place. But this is awesome. I feel really good about this. This is something I never did have labeled in my old studio, and I even have an open slot for future materials. So we'll kind of see what ends up right there. But this makes me ridiculously happy. In this case, having these drawers labeled is going to help me with my inventory. These are all charms that I cut using my Glowforge and that I sell in my shop over at ScrappyWife.com. And I put labels even on empty bins or empty drawers, knowing that I need to cut more charms in some of the different categories. So in this case, it's not necessarily labeling things that I have, but labeling things that I need to have, things that need to be replaced, things that need to be updated. And that's going to help me. That's kind of a special twist in my space, but still, it was going to work really well for me. And it kind of had me make a mental list of cuts that I need to get done this coming weekend. And this is an area that I kind of call planner land. It has a lot of different planner accessories, labeling some areas that are a bit out of reach. Even for me, who I'm 6 feet tall, my ceilings are really tall. I have trouble reaching the top shelves, but having those clearly labeled so that I can know what is up there is going to help me out so much. The same thing with the pieces that are down low. I can still read the labels when I'm at my desk, but I can't necessarily dig through what's on the shelves. This is going to help me just clearly define what goes on these shelves. And again, kind of serve as that obstacle to keep me from putting random things on the shelves. It's so easy, especially in a bookshelf by your desk, to shove stuff in there. The labels are going to keep me from doing that. All right, so feeling pretty good about the labeling that got done today. It's funny, it ends up taking a little bit longer than you think, but I love the things I labeled. I'm so excited that they are ready to go. And I have some more labeling to do. I kind of got inspired as I was working. Eventually I'll have to do some more labeling in my filming room, which you see right over there. But made some good progress here today with these labels, and I know it's going to help keep me organized in the long run. Thank you so much for joining me today as I worked with my happy little label maker and got this place a little bit more organized, a little bit more defined. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you down below. Be sure to check those out. I will link my label maker in case you're wanting to check it out. I will link that in the description box. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. And I just want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon community. If you are looking for exclusive content, behind the scenes challenges, connection, and community, Patreon is the place to be. So you can find out more at patreon.com/ScrappyWife. All right. I hope that you have a fabulous day. And as always, keep it creative.